Hey, hello, hello, hello. You'll notice we've got a powered by StreamYard in the corner. We are testing out StreamYard for the first time today. We are simulcasting to YouTube as well as Discord. And the most important question of the day, can you hear me? Like, just post in the comments, confirm that my sound is actually working, because that's always important. And then if someone could post on Discord that we have the video started, that would be great. These are all the technical issues coming together with a simulcast issue. Welcome to a live Qualcomm developer build along. I have a special guest today. I've got Rami, who is up in Colorado, actually. Rami has been building on my favorite robot, the RB3 Gen 2 Vision Kit. I love this thing. There's also a core kit if you want to play without the visual mezzanine, but this is my favorite. I call it Jane. This is Jane Smith. Say hi to the internet. Hello. Um, yeah, and so today we're working on April tags and the RB3 Gen 2. I want to welcome Rami to the stage. Welcome, welcome. Round of
Thanks, Ram.
applause. You can
Sweet.
see the thing about StreamYard, but we had this issue with Discord too. You can see Rami's background, and that is okay. There is nothing wrong with being a messy
Yeah, just
uh,
my messy like electronics shelf over here, I think. It's
It's
fine.
okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's all good.
Uh,
Don't even worry about it. Rami, why don't you introduce your actually I haven't even introduced myself. But why don't you introduce yourself, what you do at Qualcomm, what you're playing with, and then what we're building today. And
sure.
then I'll introduce myself.
Okay. Uh, okay, I'm Rami. I started at Qualcomm 4 years ago and did a couple of internships actually with Qualcomm beforehand.
Nice.
Mostly like my actual work at Qualcomm is modem related. I work on some 5G stuff, but um, my passion is usually towards FIRST robotics. I grew up competing in the program, and I'll show a couple of videos on what that looks like in a second, and
Yay.
the inspiration for this project.
Yay. And I want to hear more about first. I do want to introduce myself because it completely left the building. I'm Rain Leander. I am a developer advocate here at Qualcomm. I specialize in open source and helping Qualcomm be a good open source citizen out in public. But my other responsibility is helping this little robot and Qualcomm Linux really take off. Um, so what we're doing today technically is not on Qualcomm Linux, right? It's a
No,
different
no,
operating system.
it'll be on the Ubuntu operating system today on the RB3 Gen 2.
Yes. And now a lot of us know about Apple tags. Talk to me about what an April tag is.
Yeah, so the April tags is a fiduciary system. It helps the robot know where it is. I'll show a few videos of that in a second, but
Cool.
it's really, really important because the teams, so first is like a high school competitive program. The first 15 seconds of the match is usually autonomous. So there's no driver control, and the students have to, do a couple of tasks around the field, and it's really, really hard without knowing where the robot is. So we use these we have these like April tag looking things, or QR code looking things that are in known positions. And
Hmm.
by taking a look at the corners, we can kind of guesstimate where we are in space relative to the field.
And you have a video for us.
I do, I do.
All right, let's
Um,
get your screen. Y'all are gonna
so
have to tell us what the quality is over in Discord.
yeah, so this is the follow me. This is probably the most basic program that people use, and it's just, the student is holding up the April tag and the robot is kind of following the student around. Pretty simple. And then to kind of take it to the next step, this is what the first like 15 seconds this year will look like. So this is a team that's using the April tags to know where the robot is. As you can see, they lined up to the station, picked up the PVC pipe, went up and scored them on the reef is what it's called this year, theming. So yeah, and they just, this is the robot doing all of this autonomously. So there's no driver. It's just lining up to the April tag automatically, waiting until it has a PVC pipe, then lining up on this, which has some April tags on it, and then scoring by itself.
Okay, this is so amazing. Can we get, is that a YouTube link? Can we get that YouTube link in the comments? And
Yeah.
then we'll push it over to Discord as well.
Sweet.
And then also a link to First, because this is
Yeah.
amazing. It's First Inspires, yeah?
Yeah. First inspires.
Cool. All right. We can also sneaky put it in our banner at the bottom. This is so cool. Okay. And what are we building today?
Okay.
Ooh.
So, oh, sorry. The biggest thing we're trying to build is this, like, we have this amazing processor and it works like really, really well compared to what most first teams are using. It's much more powerful. So we're trying to get this working with April tags, and it's here. Make this work with the April tags in a way that first teams can then use it on their own robots. Um, yeah, and get some better processing power and be able to do things faster and better, and get more accuracy. So, um, we're ready. Can we get started?
Yeah. Rami, I've talked a lot with a lot of people. We have a lot of projects up in the air. Are we open sourcing this project?
Yes, this will
Are
all
we?
be open source.
Yes. And are we hosting it on Qualcomm or on something that First has, so it's more
Uh,
accessible to the First students?
I think the first initial step will be Qualcomm for this.
Hmm. Hmm.
We're building another product for first. We'll see
Okay.
what that looks like. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Cool,
that's
cool, cool.
there.
Um, Let me see if I can pull up, I think it's quick.github.com. I'm sure someone in the background knows this better than I do. Qualcomm, no, github.com/Qualcomm. There it is. All right, so we're going to have it hosted over here as soon as possible. You can follow up with me if it's not up right away. But yeah, I'm excited for this project. Let's get started.
Sweet. Cool. Yeah, so kind of a couple of prerequisites. This is the RB3 Gen 2. You kind of need one to do this project on. It I built this on the Ubuntu OS because QLinux is not very friendly to high school students, but Ubuntu is. So there's some, instructions here from Qualcomm that are actually pretty detailed and work pretty well. It took me about 45 minutes, so we won't do that on this stream, but
Okay.
it's really not bad. It's really easy going, and then some basic Linux commands. The next kind of big step is we just have to install some packages. Again, I don't want to bore you guys, so it's already installed. Same with the IM SDK. This is really what helps us talk with the camera and gives us some tools that really work.
I actually
Now,
have some news about that download too, because I'm currently working on the IDE and the SDKs and installations and stuff. And we specifically decided not to do these installations live because typically for Qualcomm employees, we sometimes run into networking throttling and stuff like that. And so we were like, we're not doing it for the stream. We're just going to assume this is installed. I will say definitively that if you go via qdc.qualcomm.com, you can get a device up and running in 5 minutes. And if you're working with the physical system, like if you actually have the robot or actually doing the downloads and stuff like that, that download of the SDK takes approximately 10 minutes, which is chef's kiss, so much more reasonable than multi hours long And we're figuring that
Nice.
out as well, but go on then.
Cool. Yeah. So the Qualcomm IM SDK, again, pretty easy. Just requires a reboot afterwards. Now this is where the magic happens. So almost everybody in the robotics industry around me, and actually most computer vision, uses OpenCV.
Mhm,
However,
mhm.
the RB3 Gen 2 natively doesn't support OpenCV. We use
Right,
mostly GStreamer.
right.
Um, so okay, kind of the bulk of this project is to get OpenCV running and working on the RB3 Gen 2. And the way we
Mhm,
do that is by creating an app sync and then moving, um, like compiling OpenCV from binary to Python with the GStreamer plugin added, and then kind of writing that GStreamer pipeline to OpenCV. So
Um,
this is,
Rami, I'm going to interrupt you for just a sec. I want, for those of people watching, for those of you watching, like, can you kind of very high level talk about what GStreamer is, what OpenCV is, and kind of why we're having to do this?
yeah. So
Very high
GStreamer
level.
is really cool. It's down to the hardware. It's very optimized. It lets you do really good audio video syncing, actually any kind of video synchronization at very, very high speeds. OpenCV is more geared toward developers trying to do computer vision.
Mhm, mhm,
So it has a lot of tools to, be able to take the picture and do some like fancy filtering and
mhm.
like operations really, really quickly. So you can then like create a computer vision application fast. GStreamer, the interesting part is OpenCV does support GStreamer. It's
Mhm.
just not the default binaries.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
and it took some digging in. Because I was a little bit worried about latency and speed and performance.
Sure.
OpenCV actually, like their implementation just passes a pointer. So there's no copy and operations of video, which is, I'm assuming a lot of people know, like when you have to copy a video stream over from one to another, it takes a lot of processing and memory. But
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
it
yeah.
this way actually is super optimized, and you can do it all in Python, which I prefer and my students prefer. So it's very much easier. Um,
Yay. Oh, that's the other thing is the when you're using Ubuntu or Qualcomm Linux 1.3 or later, it supports Python. I love that. Yes,
uh,
I get to start coding.
nice. um, there's a couple of other advantages when you compile OpenCV too. So,
Hmm.
the Qualcomm GPU supports OpenCL. So when
Hmm.
you compile OpenCV from scratch on the Ubuntu build specifically,
Hmm.
um, OpenCV's build system kind of automatically picks that up, and
Nice.
it it just supports. So now your OpenCV supports OpenCL support, which makes it that much faster and running on the GPU.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, it's a really cool system. And actually, I can show the build log really quickly, but it supports a whole bunch of things that Ubuntu supports by default. And when you build it, you can show like, you know, all these things are now supported. Um, even JTK plus, which surprised me, but yeah, all sorts of fun. Let me see, like a lot of the video IO formats.
Oh my God.
Um,
Amazing.
yeah, OpenCL, which is probably my
Java
favorite part.
is
And then
not supported.
yes,
Okay.
Java is not supported, mostly because I didn't have Java compiled. But if you, because what OpenCV's build log system does is it
Hmm.
goes through and checks what libraries you have, and then based off of the libraries you have, it like adds support. So if you were to download Java on Ubuntu, this would have turned into yes, yes, yes. The other big one that we're using today is the Eigen library. Um, because and that's also natively supported by Ubuntu. So this,
Amazing.
yeah, a lot of yeses, which is great.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the build instructions are all here. They'll be made available after this. It's pretty easy. Again, I don't want to do this. I will say building OpenCV from scratch, it's a massive library. So it takes about an hour to completely build from, C files to Python .wheel files. But it's like 7 steps, not very difficult, and works pretty well and very well maintained. OpenCV is probably one of the best maintained uh, libraries out there. So yeah, and after that, our setup is done. So it's not.
Amazing. We want to do some of this live, right?
Yeah, so we're gonna build the application now that we've covered the setup, and we're gonna start building this. So I'm actually gonna put these instructions here since they'll be shared, and
Cool.
then we'll do this.
I am going to answer some questions
Okay.
from Discord. By the way, today, again, the reason we have Powered by StreamYard in the corner is we're trying a new platform to be able to multicast. I got a comment over in Discord. What we want is an IDE that makes dev seamless, allows us to use a real editor. I'm a Vim, VI, NeoVim person. Yes, damn the Emacs. And interfaces well with metaprogramming information and the best LMs for coding, i.e. Claude 3.7. Agreed, agreed. And there is, by the way, an IDE is coming. And I am one of the people helping test it. It's, yeah, it's coming by the,
Yeah.
soon. I'm just going to say soon. Speaking of IDE, you're in Visual
Yeah,
Studio Code.
so I'm in Visual Studio. I'm SSH to the RB3 Gen 2. It's just connected to my network. You can
Mhm.
see the IP address. And this works. Like I can just, because this is Ubuntu, you can also just do this in Vim or NeoVim. It doesn't make a difference. You can install your favorite editor. I really enjoy Visual Studio, so I did it this way. And you get all the features that Visual Studio provides, which is really cool. So I can just
Amazing.
create a new file on my RB3 Gen 2. You can see this is the OpenCV build that I created. And then if I wanted to launch a terminal inside my RB3 Gen 2, I can just launch it here.
Oh, amazing. And then Todd made a comment. Qualcomm spun up its own version of Linux. WTF? I don't know what that means. Why not just rely on modules for QC specific work? Todd, you and I could have a long conversation over a favorite beverage. Um, I kind of agree. I also see the point of Qualcomm working upstream and contributing to Debian, to Ubuntu, so that basically Qualcomm Linux is only Debian or Ubuntu with Qualcomm specific modules. So yeah,
I
good.
will add,
Yes,
Qualcomm Linux is based off of Yocto, so you can add Yocto layers. And Yocto, for those who have worked in the embedded world,
yeah,
Yocto is familiar enough. It's very optimized, so it lets you build some really streamlined applications, but probably not for the everyday dev, which is why I'm using Ubuntu.
exactly, exactly. It's not, by the way, Yocto is not its own Linux flavor. It's more that it's bringing together packages from both Debian and Ubuntu, which Ubuntu is Debian based. So it's basically comes together and Yocto is the one that builds the Frankenstein monster to actually um, put everything together. Would I recommend it over Ubuntu? It depends on what you want to do. I will say that the people like Rami, like developers that I've been working with for months, tend to like the Ubuntu because Ubuntu, it's like you're very comfortable with it. It's a familiar Linux, and I get it. Um, yeah, Qualcomm Linux is getting better and will be better. And pretty much every time we run it through a cycle of feedback on this system, we incorporate the feedback into the next version. And then one more question before I let you go, Rami. How does the closure of Windows 10 affect Qualcomm's future? Are future products going to get away from Windows? No idea. And the reason why is so Nick maybe would be able to answer this one. but maybe not even like, yeah, I don't touch Windows at all. I don't even have a Windows system. um, so all good. And I think Nick actually answered that on Discord. So I'm just gonna walk away and let Rami take over. Go.
Sweet. Okay. So we're gonna get started as if this is a clean environment, or like a setup environment with our prerequisites, but we're gonna launch a new Python file and we're just gonna call it buildalong.py. So again, like I mentioned earlier, we created this um, OpenCV OpenCV Python package and we imported it. And then the next biggest step, we have to build the pipeline. This is what GStreamer is using to read off the cameras. So QTI, QMM, F-source is the like Qualcomm plugin. It's really nice. It's got some really powerful features. So we're just gonna pipe that into, we're gonna do some settings here for the pictures, and then I should have just copied and pasted this because it's easier.
Remember to always copy and paste, kids,
Yeah,
especially on a live stream.
and then the app sync, this is the main part. So what we're saying here is, take the camera picture because I really like the fact that this is 1080p, we're doing 1920 by 1080. And then the app sync is really the key word here. This is what is piping that video to our Python application and OpenCV. And then now we have to tell OpenCV, hey, we're using GStreamer with this pipeline. Please get pictures from here. And for our very first step, what we're doing is we're checking that, hey, is OpenCV actually able to open the pipeline? Because if not, that will cause,
Right.
we won't get any frames and it'll be really hard to read and whatnot. Then in classic, I think, OpenCV fashion, we're just gonna keep running this. And because we don't want this to run forever,
Right.
I want a clean way to break. So I'm gonna take 200 frames and then exit. So we're just gonna count every single loop and get some frame counter so we can exit after an X amount. And then we're gonna actually read the frame from the pipeline. So this pipes the pipeline to OpenCV, and
Yep.
then this actually gives us the return on that specific frame, and then this is the frame information itself. Once again, just error handling. We want to see if there was an error somewhere in the OpenCV library. Please tell us.
Yeah.
And then error unable to reframe. And this could happen, like even if your camera gets too hot or something. So sometimes you'll more gracefully handle it. This is 200 frames. I'm not really worried about it. We can just break here. And then for the first thing, all I'm really gonna do is just to make sure this works. I'm gonna write the first. I don't really want to do here too. We're just gonna write the frame into a JPEG and just capture the pictures, just to make sure that we are actually getting good, clean camera input and that OpenCV is working, because that's the hardest bit. You can find about 1.5 million different OpenCV projects that you could do with this. So we're just gonna do this. Now,
and by the way, if you have an OpenCV project that you want to try on an RB3 Gen 2, go over to qdc.qualcomm.com. I'd love to feature you.
Yeah. So there are a few things to note here. The Qualcomm pipeline, this has to be run in sudo.
Okay.
It's weird, I know, but it's fine. So this is why my terminal is currently in sudo. And then if you follow the Qualcomm IM instructions here, one of the things they ask you to do after every reboot is to just set your Wayland and set the runtime XDG. It's just a command you can copy and paste from the instructions every time. So we're going to run that here. And I will note sometimes the camera server likes to get stuck in weird states. That's why I have this in the code, in
Just
the
in case.
instructions.
Love it.
So we're going to restart the camera server almost every time,
Okay.
but it's fine. So, oh, actually, I need this in some area I can access. So we're gonna do, where is this? Where am I? Home Ubuntu. Actually, I set up a folder called images, so we're gonna put in
Nice.
there. It's currently empty.
And you have a dangling underscore. Is that okay? Your new
Yeah,
image.
so what I'm doing, so that I'm not rewriting the same image over and
And
over
then
again.
it's asking the frame count.
Frame count,
Yes.
and then
Thank
JPEG.
you.
So now
Mm-hmm.
we should get about 50 images here in this folder. Hey, look at that, they're starting to populate. And then you can see my desk, there's an AprilTag. This is kind of funny. Usually the first couple of frames, the camera is still booting up, so you can see it getting into the right brightness. And then
Oh
you can
my
see my
gosh.
really messy desk with the AprilTag. And so we
This
did
is
20
amazing.
frames, we have 20 frames. Great, cool. Now now that we know we have camera pictures, we can delete this. And we can start adding the AprilTag implementation. So we're gonna add the AprilTag library. You can OpenCV download this, or you can pip install AprilTag.
And we've already installed it on the operating system today, so it's already there. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, very, very simple. It'll download everything and everything will just work. And then we're going to add our detector. So this AprilTag library is really, really easy. All you really have to do is just say, I want detections.
Cool.
And then we're going to print the result that comes from this detection.
Okay.
Why do I have a frame count? Oh, I'm doing this twice now. Okay. And then, cool. So now we're going to start this. Again, 3 lines of code, right? Like that's all we're doing.
Yeah, but that's the thing is if it's simple, it's elegant.
Hey, it looked like it closed the stream, so I'm gonna make this bigger. So now we can see our detections, which is cool. The biggest thing about this is like this is the matrix for every single point in that AprilTag. So
Wow.
it gives you the corners of the AprilTag, your relative dimensions, and if I wanted this to be really accurate, I can put the camera intrinsics into the AprilTag detector, and it will give me even better estimates of where I
More
am relative to
precise.
everything.
Oh,
But this is good. You can see the tag ID equals 1. This is my tag. Let's do this one. My tag is actually number 1. It tells us some, decision margin, the tags family that it detected. All of that is now running in live, and it works.
so cool.
The other thing, the couple of other things from here that I want to note, like I'm doing this currently into JPEGs. One of the things you could very easily do is do this in reverse. So all of the Qualcomm GStreamer plugins and examples, they use GStreamer to actually then pipe to Wayland, and you can even do that with OpenCV. I'll leave that for next time. It's a little bit more complicated. We'd have to build 2 pipelines, and then one will feed in, and then the other one will feed out. It also slows down the processing quite a bit because you're doing 3, 4 different translations. But this
you're
is
adding another pipeline too. But
yeah. But
this
all
works.
different options we can do, and we can pretty much launch any OpenCV now application into the RB3 Gen 2 without many issues.
Yay. Oh my gosh, can we just take a minute to like scream? That's just amazing. We are going to get this upstream so that other people can play along. But I feel like when is First's next contest? Like April?
No, they're starting now. So this is week one actually. The teams are competing today, and then they qualify for World's Championship, which is in April.
Shut up. Oh, good luck, teams.
Yeah, and we're hoping next year. So we're gonna start demoing this late
Mhm.
April, and then we're hoping teams next year will be using something related to this,
Oh my
which is cool.
gosh. Rami, do you like I know we've got all kinds of things coming up for the RB3 Gen 2, but we're also going to have other chipsets coming out over the course of the next year. We're not
Mhm.
actually powered by StreamYard. Well, we are today, um, because we're trying a new proof of concept. Like, will you then port this to other chips like the RB5, the rumored RB8?
Yeah, of
Um,
course, this all works. Again, it's all Ubuntu, and we are talking about making a version of this on the Qualcomm Linux 1.3 for streamlinedness. Um, it'll actually be ROS-based too, because we can use some of the settings. And then the other big thing is this chipset also runs on actually Thundercom's Rubik Pi that they're releasing soon. And so our biggest one of the things we're exploring is possibly using the Rubik Pi since it's a cheaper um, dev kit. It's not as powerful as the RB3 Gen 2, but it's got the same
totally.
processor,
Yeah,
which is cool.
exactly. Like, let's see how it does. I'm sure there's a use case there.
Yeah.
I love that we're pushing this upstream. Um, by the way, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in Discord. We would encourage the interactions to go through Discord, but we also are technically live on YouTube as well if you want to come make comments over here. Yeah. What I was there in this process, this development process. You had to go back to the CE forums quite a bit. Let me get that link.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
what would you advise? And like, I'm giving you carte blanche here to like, what would you advise someone new to this development platform and getting started?
yeah, I think one of the biggest things is obviously have time. I think, posting questions takes time and um, goes a long way. The other thing is sometimes like I know I do this all the time. Skipping steps is gonna bite. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I know where this is going. I can just keep plugging away, and it never actually works. Usually I miss one key step, and then I have to go back and through the instructions and carefully reread them to see what I missed. And the support forums are really great. The camera server not being stopped was one of the biggest challenges that I encountered. So I'm
Mm,
like, I swore this kind of worked earlier. Why isn't it working
yeah,
anymore?
yeah.
And that's when I figured out that sometimes because we're using OpenCV, OpenCV has a problem closing the stream correctly.
Okay.
Um, and that's why like restarting the camera stream really, really worked out.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Cool. Cool. Okay. Um, so we need to post that. That closing and reopening the stream, is that actually posted on the forums or is it
it's
only posted in your PDF?
it's posted on the forums and in my PDF now. So
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure that people can get going because the process for us getting a project open sourced, we can't just snap our fingers and have
yeah,
something be posted upstream easily. So it'll be a hot minute before we get all this over there. Um, but I do that information, that hacking is available on the forums. I have
yes.
a question. What is the best performance QC based machine that I can buy today? our recommendation, something similar to NVIDIA's 249 dev machine. I know nothing about NVIDIA, so I'm just going to go ahead and dodge that one right now. But like, what is the best performance QC-based machine a guy can buy today? That is a great question for sales. Honestly, not a salesperson. I don't know the full gamut of products that QC offers, but I will say that this is my specialty. This one chip that comes in a couple of different formats. This is my specialty. I will say it's not 249. It is closer to 500 and 700, 500 for the core and 700 for the vision mezzanine. I know that Nick also replied on Discord. Yeah. And he replied, Nick, thank you. Shout out to Nick, who is responding to these in Discord chat. For IoT, the RB3 Gen 2 is probably the best bet as of today. Oh, is something else coming? Of course, something else is coming. Something else is always coming. For compute, anything with Snapdragon X Elite, there are many from a variety of OEM computer manufacturers. I hate the word OEM. I just personal pet peeve. OEM. Blech. But yeah, thanks, Nick. So yeah, post your questions. What other question do you have for you, Rami? Have time and patience and be kind to yourself. We definitely, I will say, as far as timing is concerned, some of my favorite support people, not that there aren't awesome support people here in the US, but some of my favorite support people are in Bangalore, India. And so, like, if you make a post today, it might not be seen until, like, you might not get a reply in this particular product until the next day. But if you aren't getting the help that you need, please always post in Discord, DM me. I'm happy to help with that. Let's see, tips and tricks.
Tips and tricks. Ooh. Having a monitor also really helps, especially when I was testing like being able to display the camera stream. That is very helpful. And then your own network. I couldn't do this at work because I couldn't connect over SSH, but
yeah. There are so many little struggle points that we're like, I would like to be able to do this better. I do have a monitoring trick that my colleagues figured out, which is if you have a video card, a video capture card, and I've just bought these generic video capture cards that basically turn your own computer that you're working on into that monitor, HDMI monitor. And then you don't have to have a separate monitor. And so I know for internal dog fooding, we are going to start passing those out along with the actual device. How is it to have a separate host? If that makes sense. Like instead of coding directly on the system, because you are used to coding directly on a Raspberry Pi or whatnot, yeah?
I mean, I did that here, right? Because of the Ubuntu, I was able to code directly on the RB3 Gen 2, and that makes it so much easier. And the Ubuntu installation works, and I've verified this both on Windows and Ubuntu. So whatever machine you have, it will download and the Ubuntu onto the RB3 Gen 2, and that's the only step you have to do from your host machine. So
amazing. Okay, very cool. I need to do that to play. I'm pretty focused on Qualcomm Linux testing and whatnot these days, but yeah, I'm so happy that Python bindings are finally there so that I can play. I got to tell you, when it was C, C++ only, I was like, I can guide you technically.
yeah, and it's kind of interesting. Like I started this project with C, C++,
Yeah.
and because that's more of what I'm familiar with typically.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then I realized that really there's like two aspects of this. One is compiling everything together in C, C++, both the Qualcomm and the GStreamer library, the GStreamer Qualcomm library and OpenCV, compiling that all together with my application was starting to become a nightmare. And I wasn't even sure, like, is my code bad? Is the compilation issue? So I kind of verified this with Python
Yeah.
first. I'm like, I can
Yeah.
then clean up my code. And now that I
Yeah.
understand the pipelines, I can then move it to C, C++. And I did, and it works. So
Amazing. Amazing. Yay. Um, what do you want to add to this?
mostly optimizations. So the
Yeah.
Qualcomm plugin, the GStreamer plugin, does a
Hmm.
really good job transferring videos and like creating different color spaces
Hmm. Hmm.
much faster than OpenCV. So I think
Okay.
the initial idea is to take the color space, the correct color space, straight to OpenCV. That way, we don't have to do the one conversion currently that we do to read April tags. So
Yeah.
that's the first big one. The other really fun big one that I'm trying to do is incorporate the AI Hub application into it. So I can currently run the ML model for YOLO on the RB3 Gen 2 perfectly fine,
Hmm.
incorporating them together so that I can do a look once and be able to detect the game piece and the April tag in one solid lead is the next big step that I'm working on.
Amazing. Amazing. Go into detail, like what do the competitors have to, like, what are the levels of the contest
Yeah.
from a large, for those of us who know nothing about first?
So you kind of saw the Following Me program. Um, Last year, they had to run around after foam rings, and they had to shoot those foam rings into like a very small opening. So they'd miss all the time, and then
Right,
they'd have to
totally.
pick them up from the ground. And so what a lot of teams did is they wrote like a game detection piece. So they trained a YOLO model to tell them where these foam rings that are on the ground are, and
Okay.
then they'd have the robot follow the foam ring autonomously.
Okay.
Um, but now you have kind of two streams. You're tracking the April tags, and
Okay.
you're running a look once for like YOLO for the game detection.
Hmm.
But we could totally combine that. We don't have to do two different processing,
Right.
and that's the next plan.
So incorporating AI to be able to simply detect the circle,
Mhm.
the foam ring. Are you allowed to tell us what this year's contests are or
Yeah,
no?
this year's it's the PVC pipes that I showed.
Okay.
You kind of have to go and place them. I haven't seen many teams try to pick them up from the ground, but what I would not be surprised if a couple of teams try to look at like there's these branches that they have to score the PVC pipes coral
Hmm.
into.
Hmm.
So what I'm thinking some of the teams will do is they'll take a look with YOLO and be able
Hmm.
to identify which one of the branches already has a PVC pipe on it and which ones
Right.
don't. And
Right.
then, instead of the human having to like think about that, make a decision, and then go, they can press a button and the robot will just go and automatically score on the correct branch that's currently open.
Amazing. Can people still join or pretty much the contest is underway, right?
The
So,
contest is underway for this year, yeah. But I
yeah,
will
yeah, yeah.
say it takes about a year of preparation. Those robots are kind of difficult. So for next year's like just building the skills and figuring out that stuff starts now or pretty
Oh,
much whenever.
so
So
amazing. And this is firstinspires.org. Is this mostly for high schoolers or university students or everything
it's
or?
K through 12. They have even pre-K programs actually, and those are like more Lego fun robots.
Okay, but I want to learn that.
Yeah,
Like, why does Lego have to be for the kids? I want to play with Lego.
yeah. No, it's fun. Uh, and those competitions look a little bit different. And actually,
Okay.
up until middle school, everything is done autonomously on the Lego Mindstorm kits. So
Okay, now I want to play with the Lego first kit. Dang it. Okay, noted. Fine. That's fine. This is fine. I'm not going to stomp about it. Do we have any other questions from the community about for Rami, for myself? We can answer a lot of Qualcomm, or a few Qualcomm questions, I should say. We can answer questions about the RB3 Gen 2, Qualcomm Linux, a little bit about Ubuntu. Ask us questions. We are thinking we'll be here for an hour, but if we don't have any other questions, we will end early, and that's okay. It looks like it's pretty quiet. I'm looking at our private chat and our comments. Oh, hello, Vinod. Someone messaged me directly on YouTube. And again, this is because we are testing a new platform, which it seems to be going well. Rami, you've never been on our stream before, but what do you think about ease of use?
This was great. It worked perfectly.
Yeah.
No problems.
I do wish we could blur our backgrounds sometimes, but that's okay. Oh, so we did get some questions about Qualcomm Linux. Actually, let me pull up the official. So Qualcomm Linux, let me back up a little bit. Rami, I'm gonna change the layout just slightly. So Qualcomm Linux is Qualcomm's attempt to work entirely upstream. Previously, they were taking the upstream Debian pieces and Ubuntu pieces and using Yocto to rebuild, but they would take the bits and then bring them in house, and in the process of building the modules for Qualcomm specific would then fork this just slightly and that just slightly, and basically by the time the 1.0, actually I want to say even pre 1.0 Qualcomm Linux came along, it was not as Linux anymore. It was not upstream anymore. And so starting a year ago, no, more like 2 years ago, the engineers have been learning, okay, if we're gonna code upstream all the way up in Debian, up in Yocto, up in Ubuntu, and actually work with the upstream developers for the pieces of the kernel that we're using, et cetera, et cetera. And then make sure that when the Qualcomm modules are added in the Yocto build phase, that it is minimally invasive, just basically like little bits of libraries and modules that are added last second. And starting at 1.0, Qualcomm Linux 1.0, it was, I don't have a percentage, but it's fairly, it's a fairly high percentage that is pure upstream bits. Now, every iteration 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, we're on 1.3 right now, 1.4 is coming. We've incorporated feedback from each version. So 1.0 didn't have Docker. It was only for C, C++. It was very minimal. It was easily replaced by Ubuntu, we'll say, as well. And yeah, every version, like 1.3 now has Python bindings. Technically 1.3 has Docker bindings, but the documentation isn't there enough. And I personally feel like if you have a feature or functionality in your system, you need to have documentation, or you might as well say that you don't even have it, which is what we're doing. Basically, 1.4 will be the official support of Docker bindings. We had some hackathons happen, one at MIT, and they were Docker experts and were like, "Oh, hey, these commands work," and just got it working by hacking it together. And like, have you ever done hackathons, Remy?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've
Um,
done like two, and like
nice.
every time it gets to be like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. the first day, and I'm like, all right, guys, I'm gonna go sleep now.
Yeah. Uh, no,
Yeah,
I did 3 or 4 throughout college, and
yeah.
a few of them I did that, and then there were a few that I got so invested in my project that I stayed up all night to to build it, and
Yeah.
it's fun. And hackathons are so good at it, like introducing to people. I was working on like Misty Robotics one year, and their
Uh,
CTO was sitting next to me debugging the platform with me throughout the night. So
I love that.
stuff like that happens.
I
It's
love that. That's amazing. Um, yeah. And by the way, when a hackathon happens, it's not necessarily a Qualcomm thing. It's like the MIT hackathon was because MIT was like, "Do y'all want to join us?" And we were like, "Yes." First, this first inspires. This is because Rami is passionate about this. So yeah, for sure, let us know, and well ahead of time. And I'm not saying we will be there, but I'm saying that keep us in the loop. Maybe we can make something happen. Yeah. Yes. Any other questions? I'm just looking over in the private chat. Someone recommended Pied Piper for streaming. FYI. Oh, okay, noted. I've actually, as far as streaming platforms are concerned, I've also used a different simulcast platform besides StreamYard, and I decided on StreamYard at least for my personal streaming platform because it's just clicky clicky and it works, and it has an OBS interface. So like it's a great combination of I want to do it exactly my way and also I want it to just work. But yeah, it's been working out. Hopefully this will be gone by the next time we stream. Um, yeah. If there are no other questions, Rami, do you want to say anything like how people can find you online or
yeah, I
anything
mean
else?
I'm in the Discord server as Rami Qualcomm. Feel free to reach out. I
Yay.
again, especially if you need help with this project or any kind of Vision April tag stuff, it's what I do on my free time. Or questions about First. I'm an First technical advisor, like as a volunteer on my weekends. Although it feels like a second time job sometimes, but
Yeah.
um, and then yeah, I'll be in April at the World competition. If you'd be surprised how many first people you meet. So
Where
happens.
is the world's competition?
Houston, Houston, Texas. And
Amazing.
yeah, and I'll be giving a
Uh,
talk there actually for the first students.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap up. Rami, thanks so much for having us. This has
Yeah,
been our second, I want to say our second ever Qualcomm Developer Live build along. One of the things that I know I want us to do for ahead of time is to have it open sourced so that you can actually code with us during a build along. But this recording will be available on YouTube. Rami, I can't thank you enough for building this and for joining us. Um, I'm making sure I'm not missing any questions. Is everyone keeping me on the up and up? I think we're good. Um, Everyone, have a great rest of your day and weekend, and we will see you online on Discord. Thanks,
thanks.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye. And then normally, of course, when I stream, I do a pocket Easter egg, but I won't do that today. Maybe next time. Have a great day, y'all. Thanks for joining us.